Hello and welcome. In today's video, we are going to talk about compose phases. But before we dive in, I highly recommend watching my previous videos, Managing State in Jetpack Compose and Life Cycle of Composables. They will give you the foundation you need to understand today's topic much better. You can find the links down in the description section below. So let's get started. When Jetpack Compose shows something on the screen, it does it in the 3 steps. We call each of them phases. So we get the data, we call them states. In these videos, we talk about how to manage a state, what is stateful versus stateless functions. We start with composition, then layout, then drawing, and finally we can see our UI. Composition part is about what to show. It figures out what UI elements like buttons, text, images, whatever you want. Layout step is about where to put them. It calculates how big everything should be and where to put them on the screen. And the last part is drawing. It's about how to show it. It actually draws everything on the screen like painting on a canvas. Basically, what to show, where to place, and how to draw. So we have one direction only right there, as you see, but we have some exceptions. When we use box with constraint and lazy column or lazy row, they need to know layout info like size before they can decide what children to show. So here the parents layout fuzz affects the children's composition, kind of like peeking ahead before deciding what to build. And let's talk about performance optimizations. Normally, all 3 phases would happen for every frame, like every time something changes, but Compose is smart. If nothing changes, it won't redo the work. It skips rerunning a composable function if the inputs, we call them state, didn't change. It also avoids re-layout or redrawing parts of the screen that are still the same. So we understand that Compose tries to do as little work as possible to keep your app fast. So let's dive into details about phases. Composition phase is like drawing a blueprint of your screen. Each piece of the UI, like a button, text, image, becomes a node in a tree. So if you remember, we talked about how a composable UI looks like a tree. This is column as parent, and it has 2 children, image and row. Image has no children and row has 2 children as 2 texts. Each of them is a node. So image is a node, text is a node, column is a node. If you remember, we talk about state change makes recomposition, and this is the way we change our UI. After Compose decides what to show, like a button, a text, now it decides how big should each item be, where should each item go. In the layout phase, here is what happens step by step. We have row as parent and it has 2 children, image has no children, and column has 2 children. First, row tells image to measure itself. Image says I'm this big. Then row tells column to measure itself, and column tells text 1 to measure itself. Then column tells text 2 to measure itself, and they give their size. Column use that info decide to its own size. Column places text 1 and text 2, one below the other. Now row knows the size of image and column. It uses to decide its own size. Then it places the image and column side by side. At the end, each node now has a width and height and X and Y position for drawing. For the last step, after Compose figures out what to show and where to put it, now it does the final step. Draw it on the screen. This is where your UI turns into visible pixels. Compose goes top to bottom through the UI tree again. Each UI element draws itself one by one. This includes shapes, image, text, background, etc. If you have a UI tree like this, row draws first, image draws itself, then column draws itself, then text 1 and text 2 draw themselves. In that part, I talk about how a state occurs recomposition. In example, padding is our state and initial value is 8, and inside of the text UI, we make a state read. If you read state during composition, you used a state value in a composable function, just like that. And if you read state inside a composable, it affects the composition phase. When that state changes, compose reruns the composable that use it. Then, if you read state during layout, you use a state value while calculating layout, like inside offset. Like in modifier offset, it affects the layout phase. When that state changes, compose will recalculate layout and possibly redraw. You know that draw is the step after layout. And if you read state during drawing, you used a state value while drawing, like inside canvas or draw rect. It only affects the drawing phase because this is the last step, as you know. And compose just redraws, no recomposition or relayout. So if you find this useful, please subscribe, like and comment because it really motivates me to go on every day. I want to upload daily videos about Compose and Kotlin, and see you in the next videos. Bye!